This is R2D Tech, and today I'm going to go through the top new features of iPadOS 15 along with my favorite new features. So get your popcorn, get your snacks, get a hot drink, and stay tuned. By far my favorite new feature is something to do with the Apple Notes app, and it's called Quick Notes. So you can now swipe up from the bottom right hand corner of your iPad display and it will bring up something that looks pretty much like a sticky note. It's basically a mini note that pops up over whatever you're working on. You can move it around, you can resize it, and once you've jotted whatever you want to get down onto the quick note, you can just swipe it away. Now, if you want to get it back up on the screen again, you just do the same thing and pull it up from the bottom right hand corner of your display, and you can create new ones as well. You can access all of these quick notes straight from the Apple Notes app in the quick notes section. I found this really useful recently, and I've been using it a lot to make to-do lists where I just pull up the quick note, add what I need to add, and then swipe it away. Then I can cross them off throughout the day. There is actually an extra feature though, or as they would say at an Apple keynote, but there's more. Say you're on a website, you pull up a quick note, you jot something down about that website, you can add a link to the website straight from the quick note, which comes up as an option. And the most amazing thing is that if you go onto that website again in the future, the quick note will pop up. Isn't that just the coolest thing you've ever heard? Well, that's all there is for note-taking, but the next thing I'm going to talk about is multitasking, which has also received a major upgrade. One thing that people were complaining about with the original sort of gestures to do multitasking was that it wasn't very clear how to use them, especially for elderly people who find it a bit more difficult to use devices like this. So what Apple have done is put a triple dot icon at the top of every app, which is the multitasking menu. When you open the menu, you'll have three options, the first of which is full screen. Secondly, you get side-by-side view, where it will push the app to one half of the screen and give you the option to choose another app to put on the other half. And finally, you get slide view, where it will slide the app off to the side and ask you to choose another app to be the main app, and then this app that you chose to be the slide app will sort of be on top of that app as a mini widget style window, if that makes any sense. You'll be happy to know though that if you are used to the gestures, you can still use those to do multitasking, which is very nice to see. Now, although yes, this is a new addition to what we already had with the gestures, it's not exactly a new feature because it basically just allows you to do the same thing as you could do before. But they have actually added something new to multitasking, which is where you can have multiple instances of the same window and switch between them quite easily. Yes, you could have the same app open side by side before, but you couldn't have multiple windows on each side. So say you're on an app, for example, Notability for taking notes, and that's one half of your screen. If you click the triple dot, it will give you an option to add an extra window of Notability on top of that. You can add as many as you want. I found this especially useful when taking notes with Notability, because I could have, say, my answer sheet, and then on a new window underneath it, I could have the questions, and on the left, I could have a website. And all you have to do to switch between the Notability windows is click the triple dot and then choose the window that you want. And that way, it makes it really easy to switch between windows without having to do any complicated gestures or anything like that. This sort of software implementation, along with hardware implementation like the Apple Pencil and Paperlike Screen Protector, along with the apps that you get, such as Notability and GoodNotes, are what make the iPad, in my opinion, the best note-taking device, or at least for handwritten notes. Next up is something which is long overdue on iPadOS, which came slightly earlier to iOS, and that's being able to move the widgets anywhere you want. So previously on the iPad, if you remember, you could only put widgets on the sidebar, which you could choose to be permanently on your home screen. Now you can still have the sidebar if you want with some widgets, but it won't stay on the home screen. You'll have to swipe it out from the left every time. But you can move widgets and keep them permanently anywhere you want on the home screen or any of your other screens. I think this is great, and it really allows you to customize the look of your iPad home screen and other screens, along with making it slightly more useful for productivity. Moving on, another feature which we got on iOS 15, which is also on iPadOS 15, is focus modes. So if you remember previously, you could have two modes, either sleep mode or do not disturb, which are very useful but are still quite restrictive. Now with focus modes, you can pretty much add as many different types of focus mode as you want, and alternate between them throughout the day. So say you're at work, you can have a work mode in which you can choose certain contacts to be able to get through to you and others not to. You can also disable certain apps from having notifications. And one thing that's really cool is you can even disable certain home screens from appearing when you're in that focus mode. So for example, I could put all of my social media apps onto one page and turn that page off when I'm at work so I don't get disturbed by lots of notifications. And then when you get home or you're at the weekend, you can also block all your work contacts from being able to contact you so you can have some downtime. As I said in the iOS 15 video, I can see this feature being very useful for studying, but also for working people, so you can really maintain that work-life balance. Next up is the app library, which we also have on iOS 15. This is something which I hardly ever use, to be honest, but now it's in the taskbar at the bottom of your iPad screen. You can click it and there's a very cool animation as it opens up. The other way to access it is by swiping through your pages until you get to the last one, which is the app library. What this does is it automatically organizes all of your apps into certain categories, so you can choose not to have certain apps on your actual home screen, but they'll still be in the app library. Although I hardly ever use this, I can see it being very useful for people that either want to have a widget only home screen and have all of their apps in the app library, or for somebody who just wants a minimalist setup so they don't have a ton of apps everywhere. I will say that when I have used it, especially when I access certain apps like the Files app, which I don't keep on my home screen, Apple have done a good job at organizing the apps for you, like you would if you were putting apps into your own folders. The next thing is something which has already been on iPadOS for some time now, and that's being able to write in text fields with your Apple Pencil. Any text field actually where you would be able to type, you can also write with your Apple Pencil. When this came out, I tried it. It wasn't great. It made a lot of errors, but using it a bit more recently, it has gotten a lot better at being able to detect handwriting accurately. It is something that I still don't really use very often, but when I have used it very recently, it has got everything pretty accurate. Finally, I thought I'd mention a couple of downsides to iPadOS, which I really hope Apple address sometime soon. First of all is apps. They're still missing the calculator app and the weather app, which are apps which you'd really expect to have by now, which have been on the iPhone for many years. Every time Craig gets asked about this sort of thing, he gives pretty much the same answer, which is...
I think it's obviously easy to create a calculator app, but creating one that feels like, wow.
I'm going to be honest, I find this pretty hilarious. I don't know why it's so difficult to make a calculator app or a weather app, because they have had one on the iPhone for quite a long time. I pretty much think that having those same apps just scaled up for the iPad would do just fine. The next thing, which is more big picture and something which I think is unlikely that Apple will do anytime soon at least, is being able to download apps that you can get on macOS on the iPad. My thinking is that since both the new MacBooks and the iPad Pros run on the Apple M1 chipset, which is Apple's own silicone, then you should be able to run macOS apps on the iPad Pros. For example, I managed to edit all of my videos on my iPad Pro, and that's 4K video, and it does it with no problem at all. So I don't think it's really a performance issue, since they are running the same chipsets as the new Macs, or at least the new iPad Pros are. It's basically up to Apple to decide whether they want to allow this. It's definitely possible, I believe, and it would make the perfect 2-in-1 laptop where you could get the Magic Keyboard and then use your iPad for both note-taking, handwritten note-taking, and also for running software that you can run on your Mac. That's something that Apple will probably never do, I think, but it's a shame because the iPad Pro would make the perfect 2-in-1 laptop. What I think they will do is work on certain niche pro apps like Final Cut Pro to work on the iPads as well. Yes, this is very nice, but it still restricts the iPad from being a full laptop since you can't download whatever software you want on it. Those are my only complaints about the iPad at the moment, and to be honest, they're quite minor since the iPad isn't really meant to be a full laptop, I don't think, although it could be. So those are the key updates to iPadOS 15. Definitely let me know in the comments section if there's anything I missed that you really enjoyed about the new software. I think it's a great device overall, and the software is very well polished, especially for multitasking, note-taking, and for any students out there who want to run basic things like Microsoft Office Word and don't need specific softwares. But that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a thumbs up if you did. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, then smash that subscribe button and notification bell below. Peace.